the White House had done a decent job of battening down the hatches and trying to stop the crisis, it's failing. And the polling, I think, is at the heart of why it's failing. Charles, your take on the outline that I just presented to the news today.
Well, I think that what you're seeing is one of the biggest media and party scandals in American history. It seems abundantly clear to me what has happened here. For months and years even, many people have said that Joe Biden was not up to the job, and certainly that he wouldn't be up to the job for another 4 years, until 2029, when he'd be 86. And those people were shouted at. They were told they were wrong. They were told that they were informed by cheap fakes, that they were driven by partisan animus, and so on and so forth. And that wasn't true. And most of the people who said that knew it wasn't true. Now, the media has pressed the other button on the switchboard, has gone completely in the opposite direction, and is now trying to force him out of the race. Why? Because it thinks he might lose. It really is that simple. This is not being driven by love of country or a fear that the executive branch is being run by somebody who is not up to it. It is being driven by a preference for the survival and thriving of the Democratic Party. And so the same press and Democratic establishment that has been telling American voters, who never bought this, by the way, 86% of American voters think he's too old, that they should not trust their own eyes for years, is now insistent that they should trust their own eyes and that Biden has to go. So I think it's worth our looking at this very real problem, which is not just a problem of the media or of perception, in its correct context, which is a scandal. I mean, these people have been playing with the presidency. They've been playing with the federal government. They've been playing with the health and safety of the United States. And they got caught. And what we're now seeing unfold is the product of that. Had they done their jobs when they knew, and they knew, there's a New York Post piece today about how Carl Bernstein, that name ring a bell? The guy who followed the lead to bring down Richard Nixon, a guy who doesn't seem too worried about where stories lead, even if they destroy a presidency, knew for years what was going on. Had heard 15 to 20 times that the president was not up to it. You know, this is a scandal that has been caused by a long-term cover-up, by a press that is interested in one thing and one thing only, which is the health of the Democratic Party and its ability to beat Republicans.
MBD, just as Charles was speaking, this broke from Bloomberg News. Dozens of Democratic lawmakers are considering signing a letter demanding that President Joe Biden withdraw from this race, according to a senior party official, as panic mounts that he will cost them not only the presidency, but control of Congress. The dam broke yesterday on Democratic officials speaking out about him running again. We'll get to who spoke out and how, but you've even had Nancy Pelosi admitting that it's a fair question whether this was an episode or an actual condition the president suffered and showed evidence of. You had James Clyburn, the man who got him the nomination in 2020, saying he backs Biden, but he would back VP Harris if Biden steps aside. You've had more Democrats on the record saying Biden needs to step down. We're going to lose with him. And now this from Bloomberg, dozens, that's the number, dozens of Democratic lawmakers considering signing a letter demanding that he withdraw from this race. I don't think he has more than a week left. Your thoughts?
I totally agree with you. The signs were evident in the first minutes after the debate when CNN just gave up. I mean, CNN's entire panel started openly mourning the Biden presidency as if he had died on stage. And you saw this proceeded in steps afterward. Over the weekend, the media came to its conclusion. You saw the New York Times editorial board say that Joe Biden, for the good of the country, has to step aside. saw editorial boards all over the country for newspapers saying the same thing. And then all the reporting was about isolating the Biden family. It was, oh, they're going to have a meeting on Sunday and Jill Biden is going to be heavily influential. The meeting happens. The New York Times immediately reports Hunter Biden was the strongest advocate for staying in and fighting it out. Now, when the New York Times reports that, they know what they're doing. They're signaling to the public that the president is now taking advice from his ne'er-do-well son, and that's who's giving him the advice to stay in. So the pressure was on. Now there were other people still taking the Biden side in the most disgraceful performance of a lifetime, something out of Tsarist Russia. Mika Brzezinski went on Morning Joe first thing and gave a soliloquy about Joe Biden's character, as if she were addressing this directly to Jill and Hunter, saying, hold on, stay in, we're with you. But that consensus is falling apart. Too much has been said, too much has been seen, and the polls are disastrous. So now they're scrambling to save the ship, the party ship, as Charles says. And the real point is, what we saw last week was the media and lots of senior Democrats have engaged in a fraud, in a fraudulent use of the chief executive power of the United States. Joe Biden is not in custody of his faculties. He is he is being held in custody by his wife, his son, and aides that no one's ever heard of, like Annie Tomasini, his deputy chief of staff, or Jill Biden's senior aide, Anthony Bernal. These people are, as Joe Biden becomes weaker and more infirm, their power increases. So this is a fraud, and it has to end. This shouldn't just end with an announcement that Joe Biden is going to leave the race, the 2020 race, and let Democrats decide. This should end very promptly with Joe Biden's resignation or his removal from office and Kamala Harris becoming president of the United States. That's why we elect vice presidents, is for situations like this.
I never thought I'd advocate for the elevation of Kamala Harris to anything, but he's not fit for the job.
Neither did I, and I don't welcome this situation, but this is what we do. And Jill Biden went out and said, in the initial defense, he's not just the man for the job, he's the only man for the job. It doesn't work like that. We elect a successor along with our president when we elect a president, and we elect a successor for just these circumstances. And now, after Thursday, for years I've believed he's unfit for office. For years I believed he's had bad days and worse days and that he was unreliable. But after Thursday, it became plain to everyone that Joe Biden's presidency has ended at some point in the past. And if it's ended, it has to be succeeded by Kamala Harris, not by his aides, not by the people around him, according to MSNBC. It has to be Harris, and they have to move on. If they don't want her to be the nominee, let them decide that at the convention. If the American people don't want her to remain president, we'll decide that in November. And that's it. That's what the times call for now.
That's what our Constitution provides. Wait, this just in. CNN now reporting Joe Biden has privately acknowledged that the next stretch of days will be critical to whether he can save his reelection bid for president, making clear to an ally Tuesday that he understands what would prompt him to accept that he can't make it. Quote, it's just not working. It would be a scenario in which, quote, the polls are plummeting, the fundraising is drying up, and the interviews are going badly, said that person. Quote, he's not oblivious. This is the same reporting. And again, they're quoting an ally. That's who the New York Times quoted as well, an unnamed Biden ally. The White House denied it. Presumably they deny this report as well. But when you see the same language appearing in multiple publications, that's somebody getting out there, arguably to soften the ground. And what we, at least 2 out of 3 of us believe is about to come, which is at some point soon an announcement. Another update just hitting. Democratic Representative Summer Lee, Democrat from Pennsylvania, just said in a radio interview, this is per Scott MacFarlane at CBS News, time is not on our side. We have a few months to do a monumental task. If our president decides this is not a pathway forward for him, that there is not one, we have to move very quickly. There's not going to be time for a primary. That time is past. The vice president is the obvious choice. She's sitting right there. She's already been in the White House and has the name recognition and has been on the trail and the optics of pushing aside a black woman, and Summer Lee is one herself. It's not good. She's just the latest. We raised that because she's just the latest Charles Democrat to break with the party line. There's a report out today that Senator Joe Manchin, who's now an independent but still caucuses with the Dems, was ready to come out on a Sunday show this week and say Joe Biden must not run. He cannot be the party nominee. He was pressured by Chuck Schumer directly and other top Dems in leadership not to do that. That would be a sitting U.S. senator with some power, some serious power amongst independents anyway, in respect. They stopped him. They did not stop Senator Whitehouse from Rhode Island from coming out and saying that the debate was horrifying and that Joe Biden seriously needs to reflect on whether he can continue. And then here's another top name, Jamie Raskin, speaking out in a pretty telling way on Chris Hayes' show on MSNBC last night, SOT 15.
And I know this is a moving target. It's got to happen quickly, but I can guarantee you, Chris Hayes, there will be massive unity and focus on that task when we get to the end of this process. And it's happening very quickly, I think.
Okay. It's happening very quickly, and that there will be massive support for whomever emerges. This July 4th, as we celebrate the birth of our nation, it's important to reflect on the freedoms our forefathers fought for. But today, these freedoms are under attack. Look no further than the treatment of President Trump and the lawfare we're seeing this year. That's why now more than ever, we need organizations that are fighting back. AMAC is the Association of Mature American Citizens, and this is more than just a senior discount organization. AMAC is dedicated to protecting conservative values and defending our rights. Just listen to the way they talk about themselves in this ad copy. They're not afraid. They're ready to fight and to stand up for conservative values, unlike some other senior organizations, okay? You can learn more about how AMAC is actively fighting for your freedom by visiting amac.us/Megyn. By joining AMAC, you're not just becoming a member, you're becoming part of a movement. This July 4th, stand united. Join AMAC today and ensure that your voice is heard. amac.us/MEGYN. Together, Americans can make a difference. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.